Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Ask a Parent webinar with Tirza Meyers. My name is Luminara Serdar, and I consider myself an autism recovery specialist. I put on the Autism Recovery Telesummit annually, and I help kids recover from the symptoms known as autism, feel better in their bodies. My background's as a scientist, molecular biologist, geneticist, cell biology, and then I studied neuromodulation technique, which is a way to help the body understand the mistakes it's making and correct them. And what else do I want to say? I think with that, and I do Ask a Parent, Ask an Expert webinars about monthly. And with that, I'll introduce Tirza Meyers, who is a mom, I think first and foremost, a certified functional health coach, and she's done some personal training. So I will go ahead and say welcome and let you say a little bit more about your personal history.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I'm a huge fan of yours. I've learned so much from you. It's really made a difference, in our lives, and we have a son that's on the spectrum. So thank you so much for all you do, Luminar. I really appreciate you and everything that you do to for families that have a loved one on the spectrum. So thank you.
Thank you for that.
A little bit about myself. So I'm Tirza Meyers. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here and watch us. I'm a little nervous because this is not something that I do very often, so please bear with me if I stumble on my words. And I'm a wife, and I'm a mom of two amazing kids, a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. My 7-year-old is on the spectrum. He's high functioning. He's an amazing boy. He's got so many gifts and so many talents, and we've worked very hard on working to recover him. So a little bit of my professional background is I was an educator many years ago. I worked as in preschool and kindergarten, and then I jumped into fitness because I love helping people and I wanted to help on a different level. So I got into personal trainers. I worked for Equinox fitness clubs. They're high-end fitness clubs that are now all over the U.S. And with that, I started my on the road to learning all I could about being healthy, and so I can help myself and I can help my clients just live, a healthy life. And then I was so passionate about learning about health, I decided, I'm going to go and become a health coach. So I went and got certified. I'm a functional health coach, and I love to help people just make the best choices that are sustainable and feel good to them. Just little baby steps and help people get to where they want to be. And I'm super passionate about helping families with loved ones on the spectrum.
That's awesome. Thank you. So you did tell us, or what I put out in the email is that you were going to talk about, kind of the toxic environment we live in. And I think a lot of people on this webinar or who will be listening to the recording get that. But if you want to highlight just some of the things that maybe people new to the diagnosis of autism or new to helping their child doesn't know about. So just go ahead and start there, if you will.
Sure. So, for those of us that are new to this, it's never fun to get a diagnosis like that for your child because we all have so many hopes and dreams for our children. And it's definitely, it's been a long road for us. And I have to say that every day is a learning experience, and I take it one day at a time. And I've realized the importance of taking care of myself and taking care of my marriage and being, working together with my husband, because if we're not good, then we can't help our kids and everything just kind of falls apart. So if you guys are new to this, one day at a time is my best advice to you. So, I think too, a lot of us as parents, we try to figure out how this happened or why it happened. And there are no answers. Nobody really knows why autism is so prevalent nowadays. I mean, I think the statistics used to be 1 in 10,000, and now the latest are, depending on where you look, 1 in 47 or 1 in 36. And I've always suspected that it was the environment. Vaccines was had a big role in it, and I think that some kids that are are sensitive to vaccines can definitely be vaccine injured. And I mean, I've seen kids that in my practice that I know of have been injured by vaccines. I have friends that have vaccine injured children. But I think it's more than that. I think it's the environment. So I live in Southern California, and I don't know if you guys know about the chemtrails, about the planes, you know, flying above us and making those lovely streaks in the sky. Well, I was reading an article the other day that they have nanoparticles, like silver particles, that are basically getting into our water supplies and into our soil and on our skin, which is our body's largest organ. Because I live in Southern California, and there's a lot of traffic and a lot of cars, there's a lot of smog and not a lot of healthy air, and it's it's just compacted. I think we're being salted with more and more toxins in our environment. And then on top of that, we have Roundup and glyphosate. I'm sure a lot of the people that are watching today know about the dangers of glyphosate. But it's, I've been learning throughout the years and on my journey with my son to just really try to kind of figure out what's causing all of this and how we can fix it. So obviously eating organic is as important as much as possible, and eating free range. If you guys are eating meat, eating free range, grass-fed, it's important. It's expensive, I know, but it's really important. I have a girlfriend that has no problem dropping $800 on a pair of shoes, but she doesn't really care about what she puts in her body or on her body. And I'm not knocking her, and I'm not judging. Everybody does their own thing, but I think I like to practice prevention. You probably agree with me, Luminara, about the importance of eating healthy and giving yourself, the opportunity to have enough sleep and not have a lot of stress in your life, and make time to have fun, and just reduce toxins as much as possible.
Right, and I bet most people on here are also into prevention now that they know what can happen if you don't prevent. But there's one thing I wanted to say about the grass-fed meat, and if you think about it, it's like you almost have to think of almost like the sort of genealogy of the animal or what they've eaten. So if you have a crop of GMO corn that's been sprayed with lots of glyphosate, and that gets put into animal feed, and the cow eats that, they're not a quote unquote clean cow, in that they're getting antibiotics and a lot of hormones, which fatten them up, and the grains fatten them up. So the meat looks better. But what's actually inside the meat is all that glyphosate, the GMOs, which cause a lot of inflammation in the animal. So you can imagine the chemistry in the animal. It's inflamed, and it's got all these other chemicals it shouldn't have. And then it goes to slaughter, and then you eat that. So right. What are you putting in your body?
Right. That's exactly right. And glyphosate, as I'm sure most of your audience knows, is everywhere. And you guys probably also know about that it's a neurotoxin and an herbicide, and it's sprayed on anything, all of our crops that are non-organic. And I believe there's starting to be a cross-contamination. And I've read reports that, now when it's raining on us, when it rains, it's raining glyphosate, which is kind of scary. So I can't control what happens when I leave my home. I can't control the air that I breathe outside, and I think it's important to get outside and get fresh air and vitamin D. And we can't live in a bubble. I certainly don't live in a bubble, but I like to control what I can in my home. So going back to your question earlier, we have a good water filtration system, an air purification system, and I do all of our cooking. I think it's important to minimize processed foods and eating in restaurants, because you never know what's in your food. And gluten is a big one. I was actually talking to a client yesterday, and she said that they eat out a lot, and she has an autoimmune disease, and she's getting migraines. And I said, well, what about your gluten? And she said, yeah, I kind of do gluten, here and there. And I'm sure Luminara, that gluten is not, I like moderation, but gluten, and a lot of people don't know this, so I hope it's okay that I mention this, but gluten is not a moderation thing. There's no 80-20% rule with gluten. And I like to say that gluten is kind of like being pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. There's no 80-20, and gluten can stay in your system for up to 6 months. So if you're eating gluten, if you're gluten-free Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends you're eating pizza and drinking beer, and your kids are eating donuts and stuff like that, then there's some ramifications on their health and probably your kids' health too, especially if they're on the spectrum. So it's really important to, eliminate that and dairy and some other things too.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned gluten, because this is something that people go, do I really have to go gluten-free? And here's the thing about gluten. If you listen to Dr. Tom O'Brien, he's an autoimmune specialist, gluten specialist. He says that everyone has a certain oral tolerance for gluten, and some of us is higher and some of us is lower. So, so we all, in a way, have some kind of sensitivity, and like we can handle some amounts. But if you have a leaky gut and your cells are splitting, the larger gluten can go through into your bloodstream. And there's a couple of things it can do. It can cause immune reaction, and wherever it sits in your body, it can, like, I know people have joint pain and brain fog and other things. And then the second thing it can do, along with the caseins from dairy, is it can create a morphine-like structure. And morphine, as we know, is a painkiller and very addictive. So these gliadomorphine, casomorphine can get into the brain. If the gut's leaky, the blood-brain barrier is probably leaky, and then create this kind of almost addictive effect. So if anyone's tried to take their kids off of the pasta, the breads, all that stuff, and they're just like they're like monsters, it's because there's probably some addiction chemistry going on, right, and you've got to wean them.
That's absolutely right. And it's super important. It's hard, and I understand, because we've been there. I mean, my kids used to eat gluten. We used to eat gluten. And it wasn't until I really understood how important it was to get rid of it that I'm a rip the Band-Aid type of person, rip the Band-Aid off type of person. And with gluten, I think it's really important to do that. And it's hard, and I get it. And dairy, it's hard to get rid of dairy, and I get it, but it's super, super important, especially for our kiddos that are on the spectrum.
Yeah, there's one more thing I want to say. I want to go back a little bit and talk about glyphosate, and just be clear that glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, which is sprayed so prevalently in parks, on roadsides, on crops, or on the edges of crop, or before crops are planted, or when crops are harvested, like wheat, oats, barley, peas, lentils, grains, different things. So like you said, it's a neurotoxin, but what you didn't mention is it was, before it was an herbicide, it was patented as an antibiotic.
Right.
So if you imagine that you're eating glyphosate, you're putting an antibiotic into your gut. What's it doing to this all important microbiome? So I just wanted to clarify for people who didn't know what glyphosate was.
Right. Those are good points, and thank you for covering that. And I'm sure most of your viewers know that our gut is now called our second brain. So there's a connection between our brain and our head and our lower intestines, and antibiotics. Anti means against. So antibiotic means against life. So if we have more bad bacteria in our gut than good bacteria, all kinds of dysbiosis happens in the body, and things start going sideways. And I know that, I follow you. I think like I said, you're incredibly smart and you know your stuff. And I like to listen to health experts. And Dr. Stephanie Seneff is somebody that I highly, highly look up to. And, she's done a lot of research about the correlation that we're seeing between glyphosate use that we've seen especially in the last 10 years. And the rates that we're seeing in autism and ADD and ADHD and anxiety and depression and cancer and Alzheimer's. I mean, she's saying that they're, directly related. And I mean, I'm sure you guys all know somebody that has cancer or just died of cancer, and Alzheimer's is starting to be called type 3 diabetes because it's becoming so prevalent. And what's changed? Our environment, right? And glyphosate was introduced in was it the early 90s, I believe?
No, I think it was the 70s.
Okay. I believe it was the early 90s, but I
think it was more widespread then, but I thought they were working on it earlier. I don't know. You probably know better than I do.
And so they've been using it, and what happens with crops is they become resistant to this antibiotic, just like we as people do, right? So if we keep taking antibiotics more and more and more, we become more resistant, and they start being ineffective. And the same thing has happened with crops. So if you keep spraying the crops that are becoming resistant, you have to spray more, and you have to spray more, and you have to spray more. in the last 10 years, that's when we're seeing these huge numbers of all these diseases and problems that we're seeing. Autoimmune diseases is another one. And they also lost their patent, is what I read. They lost their patent, so a lot of other companies were able to come in and make the same type of weed killer, but at a cheaper cost. And there's no regulation really, and it's just created a lot of problems for all of us.
Yeah, and I think there's one more thing I want to say about the human body and glyphosate and its reaction to antibiotics is I feel like the microbiome in our gut is almost like another system of our body because there's more microbial cells than there are body cells. So anything you guys could do to enhance the diversity of your microbiome and the numbers of good bugs, we call them bugs, good microbes. And so if you do take antibiotics for an ear infection, if you have antibiotics ever, you want to make sure you're also supplementing with probiotics to keep that other organ, so to speak, organ of the body as healthy as possible. So what else? So Tirza, you mentioned that you have water filtration, you have air purifier. What else did you do in your home, or what else do you recommend people do to help support health?
Sure. So you're talking about those bad bugs. So it's important to have more good bugs than bad bugs, right, in our microbiome. So fermented foods are really fantastic, and a lot of people say, well, how am I going to get my kid to eat fermented sauerkraut? And to me, supplements are non-negotiable because we've done a lot of testing to make sure that our son needs specific supplements, so we know what to give him. But fermented foods to me are the same thing, and he's only been eating fermented sauerkraut for a few weeks now, and so I just put a little bit on a spoon, and I just kind of like, okay, it's sauerkraut time, and he just opens his mouth and he eats it because it's a non-negotiable. I think it's really, really important. So fermented foods, you can do sauerkraut, kimchi, which can be a little challenging for kids. Maybe other fermented vegetables like fermented carrots or some other things. We also I make my own bone broth, which is super easy to make now. They have instant pots. You can make them those electric pressure cookers. You can make bone broth really fast, or you can buy it. It's really good to help with leaky gut and just healing your gut in general, and just eliminating processed foods, cutting out sugars. Again, staying away from restaurant foods, and definitely no gluten and dairy.
Yeah, I think I just want to add something I've become aware of recently with the restaurant foods is when you go out and you have anything that's fried or any kind of salad dressing or anything that's sauteed, it's usually in canola oil or soybean oil or maybe even corn oil, depending on the place. Those are all GMOs. You can bet a restaurant's not going to get organic, right. And they're all really bad fats for your body. So when you cook at home, you can use coconut oil or even butter if that fits with your diet, or even avocado oil that has a nice high temperature. It can go to a high temperature. So just be aware that I think part of the problem with our kids is their cell membranes, which are made of fats, and the brain, which is made of a lot of fat. If you have a lot of rancid or really bad fats in there, imagine what that's going to do. It's going to kind of stiffen those membranes, stiffen the brain. They're not going to work as well. Right. Every time you go out, that's probably the kind of stuff you're putting in. That's why the fish oils are so amazing. And so
it's true.
I don't have anything more to say about that. I just became aware of that more and more. So I want to put that out to people.
And that's a very good point, because most people don't really think about that. They just want to go out to eat. But restaurants, their bottom line is money. So they're going to use the cheapest ingredients. It's not going to be organic unless you go to an organic restaurant, and those are really hard to find. In a perfect world, we would all be growing our own food again, right? And now we would have to use a greenhouse and, get our soil from like New Zealand or something. So you just have to do the best that you can to minimize toxins in your home. I like to also use natural cleaners. None of the harsh stuff, because those are all endocrine disruptors, as is glyphosate. So just eliminate as many toxins as possible and just create the best and cleanest environment in our home for our family. Yeah.
What about what you put on your skin or on your kids' skin?
That's a really big one, and most people don't understand how important it is to put clean things on our skin. It's our largest organ, right? So most health and beauty products have a lot of chemicals and toxins, including shampoos and conditioners. And I mean, you have gorgeous hair when you go to the salon, and you could be spending a lot of money, but they're endocrine disruptors in a lot of ingredients that are in most of the shampoos and conditioners that we buy out there, and lotions and toothpaste. And so it's really like you have to go through a whole education on minimizing. And you guys, the easiest thing and the way I started learning was I would just I would pick up like a bottle of shampoo, right? And I would look at a word that I didn't understand or couldn't read, I should say, that had a lot of letters. Or had like some numbers on it, and I would just Google it, and I would just go dangers of whatever that word is, or dangers of, like with food, like dangers of hydrogenated oils. And I just have some sources that I trust, and I know that when I go to those websites and I read what they say, I say, okay, that's something that I need to work on eliminating from our household. And
one of those resources is the Environmental Working Group, who it's ewg.org, but I think their product database is called Skin Deep. Is it?
Yeah, but if you go to the ewg.org, it will give you all that for all the health and beauty products that are out there. So you can even look at your laundry detergents and your soap, like your laundry soap, your dishwasher soap, all that stuff. You can put the name, even the name of the brand that you're using and what it's called, and some of them are in the database, or just look at ingredients specifically.
And can you recommend something that you do use that's effective
for
your stuff?
For skin, we use coconut oil. I think it's fantastic, and it's all natural. I use it as a moisturizer for skin. I use it for oil pulling, which is really fantastic for oral health. I use it on.
Want to say what that is?
Sure. So oil pulling is basically you take a little bit of a good oil, like I like coconut oil. I take maybe a teaspoon or so, and I put it in my mouth. I also like to use some essential oils that help with removing bacteria from the mouth, and you pull it through your teeth. So you're not swishing like you would with mouthwash, but you're just pulling it through your teeth, and ideally you want to work up to 20 minutes. So I like to do it first thing in the morning because you're brushing your hair, you're putting on your contacts, you're taking a shower, or whatever you're doing in the morning. So after 20 minutes, and then it really just helps pull out all the bacteria from your mouth, and then you spit it out in the trash can. Don't spit it in your sink, because then you'll get a big plumbing bill. Spit it in the in the trash can, and then rinse your mouth, and then brush your teeth, and you're ready to go.
I want to say also, from the science perspective, my understanding of the oil pulling is, I love, and maybe you can say the essential oils too in a moment, but my understanding of the oil pulling is as we sleep, our body cleans itself, right? And gets these toxins out. And the oil will actually pull the fat soluble toxins. That's why it's oil likes oil, So, and probably the essential oils are killing bacteria or balancing it. Can you recommend what oils might be good?
Sure. So I use myrrh, like frankincense and myrrh in the Bible. So I'll use myrrh oil is a good one. I also use a tea tree oil, and then I use I believe it's oregano oil. So I do a couple of drops of each. So oil, and then the essential oils, and I just pull for 20 minutes. And I recommend for people to start off with maybe a couple of minutes and work their way up, because 20 minutes can be a very long time this is new to you, but it's really super healthy. I had some gum issues when I was pregnant with my 7-year-old, and that was before I was oil pulling. And when I started oil pulling before my daughter was born. So when I was doing it I was pregnant with her, and I had no gum issue, no oral health issue whatsoever. And I wasn't doing anything different other than oil pulling. And of course, your gut health is very important for your teeth as well.
Right.
And yeah, they're all connected.
Right. There's one other thing I want to mention that I don't think people think about a lot, and that is the bed. So a lot of mattresses have really nasty chemicals, fire retardants, that are not good for our health. And if you imagine how much your kid sleeps, how many hours a night or now,
Part of our life.
right?
Yeah.
And then even as an adult, if we're getting our full 8 hours, that's a third of our life we spend in bed. So please make sure you get a bed that, if you're ready to buy a new one, or even if you're not, like, investigate what, what natural forms. I think there's natural latex now. Sometimes you have to get a doctor's notice for a certain kind of mattress. I don't know. Do you know about that?
I don't.
Well, you used to be able to have to get a doctor's prescription, so to speak, for a natural mattress without the fire retardants, because the fire retardants are safe. So if that cigarette your kid's smoking in bed accidentally burns, it's not going to burn the house down. So, and cribs, crib mattresses. So I would just think about that. And what do you want to do about that?
Sure, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, Tirza, you said that there's something that helped your son recently, and I would love for you to share the story of kind of, if you can speak to what was going on with him before you did this, and then what differences you saw.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my son used to script a lot. So he would basically communicate with us mostly through repeating lines from movies, YouTube videos, TV shows. He has a very good memory, as I think most of our kiddos with ASD have. So he can see something like once or twice and have it memorized. And it was all very relevant to the conversation, but it wasn't, he wasn't conversing with us and communicating with us through typical normal conversation that you would normally have.
Through his own words.
Right. And it was very cute, but, at some point as you get older, we have to start living in the real world and help our kids assimilate. He used to love to be a character. So let's say Paw Patrol, for example. So he would be Marshall, and then the rest of us in the family would have, other names. So I would be Sky, and his sister was, Everest, and Daddy was another character, and that's how he would refer to all of us. And it was from minute to minute, he could switch from Paw Patrol to Skylanders to, Lightning McQueen, Cars characters, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So he used to do that a lot. He also, when I would take him to the park, he would get bored easily because he didn't have anyone to play with. So we would be at the park for 10 minutes and he would want to, go home. Homework used to be a challenge because it was hard for him to focus and sit down and do his homework. So we've had, he used to be a very picky eater, and he still is, but it's gotten better. But if it's okay, I'd like to share with you what we've done and all the amazing, amazing changes that we've seen.
Yes.
Is it okay if I show you what this miracle supplement is that we've been using? I mean, it's magic. Okay. So I brought a bottle so I can show you guys. It's right here. This is called Biomedic.
So there's a light shining on it in a certain way. Just bring it a little closer. Yeah.
Can you see that now?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is called Biomedic. And I have some notes because I want to make sure that I get this all right. So Biomedic was designed purposely to rebuild the microvilli in your gut, which is like little fingers that are in your gut. And Luminar, you can probably speak a little bit more about that, but little fingers that are coming out of your intestine walls, right? And can you talk more about that?
Yeah, the reason they're there is because it increases. If you have just this as your wall, then there's only that much surface area. But if you have this, it's a lot of surface area to absorb your nutrients. And it's the size of, is it 2 tennis courts? I can't remember how many tennis courts, but the surface area of at least 1 or 2 tennis courts. So that's why there's microvilli and those get harmed.
Right. So what glyphosate does is it kills the microvilli, right? And it goes into our intestines and it creates leaky gut. And a lot of kids on the spectrum and most people with autoimmune diseases have have leaky gut, and I believe that glyphosate is something that has been a big culprit. So Biomedic, again, this like most beautiful thing ever that comes in a bottle. It was created to rebuild the microvilli and help that villi regrow. It also remineralizes the system, which Roundup can cause a lot of problems with that. And then it repopulates the body with healthy gut bacteria, which is super important, because if your gut bacteria is dying because of all the glyphosate and all the toxic burden that's in our environment and in our food and everything, then again, you have a mismatch and a misbalance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So Biomedic helps with that. So they did a preclinical 6-week study, double-blind, approved by IRB, and they found the following results. So there was in 6 weeks, a 74% reduction in glyphosate in the body, and a 75% reduction in C-reactive protein, which is the marker for inflammation. And inflammation equals disease. So the more inflammation we have in our body, the more disease we can have. It's just easier for things to start, going haywire, and that's when cancer happens and autoimmune happens and autism and all these other things that we're seeing. Mm-hmm. So a 74% reduction in glyphosate, a 75% reduction in inflammation, and a 35% reduction in food sensitivities. And that's all in 6 weeks. So this supplement, when it first came out, it's only been available for maybe 3 months now. And I knew it was coming out, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it, because I follow people like you, Luminara, and Stephanie Seneff, and I understand Dr. Seneff, and I understand the importance of reducing and removing glyphosate from your body. So when Biomedic came out, I was like, I need it. And I put our son on it right away. So I started off, the recommended dose is 2 capsules. I started him off on a half of a capsule, and I titrated him up. I moved him up to mega dosing, so which is 4 capsules a day. And I'd love to share with you the amazing, I mean, life-changing results that we've seen with him. I can't hear you. I lost.
Sorry, I was muted for some reason.
Oh, that's okay.
I must have coughed. So what you're saying is you started low and slow.
Correct.
So as not to have kind of a big reaction kind of thing.
That's correct. So I started low and slow, and I made sure that I wasn't changing anything else. I didn't add anything. I didn't take anything away. I didn't add any therapies. I didn't remove any therapies. I really wanted to see what Biomedic was going to do. So we started seeing a difference in him by the end of the first week. I mean, I went up to my husband and I said, are you seeing this too? Because it's only been a week, but are you seeing this, or is it my imagination? He said, no, I'm seeing it too. And since then, so his scripting, I was talking about how he used to script. He used to script about 90% of the time and have real conversations with us 10% of the time. It's now switched, completely switched. He is, I mean, I can say that he's practically no longer scripting. I mean, 10%.
Wow.
It's incredible. I mean, that alone is worth its weight in gold. He is also much more social. I'm taking him to the park. We go to the park several times a week. Definitely on the weekends. We like to be outside and active. And so he used to be that kid that would just get bored after 5 minutes. He is playing with other kids at the park. They're chasing each other. He's laughing. They're using each other's names. And I think an outsider looking in would never know that my kid was on the spectrum. And I mean, the first time it happened, I stood there and I had tears in my eyes, because I said, wow, this is what this is what it feels like to be the parent of a typical child who just interacts. And it was so beautiful for me to see him enjoying himself and having fun and just not a care in the world. He has long hair, not long as mine, but he has long hair, and he was just running, and he was, his hair was kind of blowing in the wind, and he was smiling and giggling, and it was so fantastic to see. And it happens every time we go to the park now.
That's amazing. That's so amazing.
Yeah. Homework is no longer a struggle. I mean, it used to be a struggle. He's got so much more patience now. He can sit there and he can get through the homework, and we have fun when we do it. It's not, just butting heads anymore, which is really great. his awareness of himself and his environment has changed. So I'll give you an example. About a couple of months after he started taking biomedic, he was heading out to school one morning, and he takes the bus. So he puts his backpack on, he stops, and he's like, he's walking away, and then he turns back and he looks at me, he's like, Mom, what about my lunchbox? On Wednesdays, he has a short day at school, so he doesn't have a lunchbox. So obviously, the weight of his backpack felt different. For the first time in 3 years that he had been going to school, he noticed the difference. Or another example, we have a can of baking soda in our bathroom because we use it for deodorants and toothpaste and stuff like that. So it's been there for over a year. So he's brushing his teeth and he's like, what's this doing here? And I said, well, what is it? He says, baking soda. I said, well, where does it belong? He goes, in the kitchen. Like, duh, Mom, it belongs in the kitchen, right? I said, well, what do we do with it? Oh, we bake with it. Back to brushing his teeth. I mean, just like who are you? What did you do with my kid? So let's see what else. He's still a picky eater.
Let me interrupt you for a second, because people are asking, what is this, and can I send the link? I'm going to put the link in the chat box in a minute so you guys don't have to Google it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I want to say something else about it before I give you the link.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Sure. So he's still a picky eater, but he is trying out new foods. He's coming into the kitchen and asking me for things he's never eaten before or had any interest in eating. He wants to help me make food and like dinner and stuff like that. I mean, it's really fantastic. So his nutrition has expanded. He's curious about everything. So we have a science center that we go to, and we've been going there for about 3 years, usually weekly, just depending on the exhibit. And he used to be the kind of kid that, was very regimented, like most of our kids are. There's a certain order to everything, and there were only certain exhibits that he would look at. And now he's gone through everything. Like, he has looked at all the exhibits in the last month or so. He is asking questions. He's really curious about the way things work. I mean, it's phenomenal.
That's awesome. I just wanted to say that what I think what you're seeing is a lot of gut healing, and when you see gut healing and that repopulation of the flora, that directly affects the brain, and then you see the brain healing.
That's right. He's asking questions. I have a 3-year-old that's asking questions. It's taken him until the age of 7 with just a lot of detoxification, and we never saw this before the biomedic. So he's asking questions. He's curious about how things work. We're no longer characters. Every once in a great while, he'll say, my husband will say, hi, Marshall. He's like, I'm not Marshall, I'm Robert. It's really fantastic. He's also playing and engaging with his sister, and she used to be invisible to him. Like, he couldn't care less about his sister. And now they're playing and they're having fun and they're giggling, and I can stand in the kitchen making dinner and know that they're just happy together. And it's been so joyous to have, to see him do that, but also for his sister too, because his sibling is his sister, my daughter, she's a typical child, and it's so nice that they can actually interact and play together now. That never happened before. What else? He has less gas, much less gas. His stomach is not as distended as it used to be, because again, that the ingredients that are in the biomedic are just pulling the glyphosate out. They're reducing the inflammation. So it's just really, really cleaning him out. And the reason why I wanted to start him slow is I didn't want to, his body to go into shock. So I definitely recommend starting slow and then going up.
I recommend for everybody, for everything. If you're adding a new supplement, you start really low and slow, and you titrate up, and you only have one thing at a time, so you can tell what's the thing making the difference.
That's true. His focus is better. He even tattletaled on his sister a couple of weeks ago. I was in the kitchen making dinner, and he's like, Mom, Isabella did such so and so, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And the first time I told my husband, I'm like, well, that was so cute. It was awesome to see him tattling. Well, it's happening more and more and more, and I'm like, now I'm at a point where it's like awesomely annoying. So yeah. I could spend, if we had another 2 hours, I could tell you all the wonderful things that we've seen in him, but I think those are
I think that's a good sampling of things. There's a woman named Deanna who says your son sounds a lot like mine, who has celiac and they're gluten-free. Do we need to do casein-free? He loves milk, but I limit it totally. You have anything to say about that?
Yes, I definitely would eliminate it totally. It's inflammatory to the body. So what I tell my clients to do is maybe start off with half milk and half almond milk, and then gradually just go maybe 75% almond milk and 25% milk until you just get all the milk out. So that's something that I would go a little bit more slowly to get him away from it. My son used to love cheese, those little Baby Bell cheeses. He would, I mean, he could live on that and strawberries, right? And strawberries are one of the most sprayed, full of toxins fruits that are out there, and cheese. And so I still let him eat strawberries. I try to find organic as much as possible, but if I don't, I'm going to tell you something really cool about the Biometric in a second. But if I don't really worry about it. But cheese, definitely, I would find substitutes and just get that out of his diet.
Well, and I think, like you said, slowly, like, part almond milk, part milk, because of that weaning of the morphine-like chemical. I want to say something else about the milk in my experience and listening to tons of other practitioners that I've interviewed or that I've just heard. Parasites love milk. It's one of their favorite foods. And if our kids are in this this state of high toxicity, inability to detox, that's one thing that promotes parasites is, and parasites help to take the heavy metals in, which is a great thing, but then they cause their own problems, and they love milk as a food. So I think that our parasites, our microbiome, our combination of flora dictates what we want to eat. So once like you said, you're seeing your son is less picky and eating more. Once you balance that, I think that you see more openness to different foods because there's good gut flora in there that want those foods.
Right. So
before you go on, I just want to say people are typing into the chat to show the supplement again. So if you will show the Biometric.
Of course.
And then at the same time, I just put, go ahead and hold it up. Biometric. It's from a company called Purium. And thank you. And I just put, excuse me. I just put in the chat box the place to get it. I put 2 links. And I'm going to share my screen and show those links. Share screen. So this is it. So this is the Biometric. And this is, you can buy it as a single product. Just one, which has 60 capsules, so that's about a month's supply if you're doing 2 a day. But I know Tirza says it's more worth it to do the 4-pack because, let's see, the 1-pack is, the one at a time is $60, and the 4-pack is basically $199 or about $200 for 4 bottles. That brings it down to $50 each. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Wait, is there something else I wanted to show? Not yet. So what I wanted to say, so I also typed into the chat box that you can get $50 off your first order. Is it $75 or more?
Yes, so the minimum is $75 or more. So if you want to get some Biometric, I recommend to everybody to get a 4-pack, a family pack, which is 4 bottles, because this is great for kids on the spectrum, but our whole family takes it, and in my professional opinion, it's one of the most important supplements that are available on the market right now, because we all have glyphosate in our system. We're all eating food that's sprayed with glyphosate. So I like
your child who has it, right?
That's right. I like to practice prevention. I don't want to have cancer. I don't want to get Alzheimer's. I already have an autoimmune disease, so I'm doing all I can to make sure that I don't get sick and I can be around to take care of my kids for a long, long time. And this, you guys, this right here, this has been life-changing for us. It's been life-changing for our son. I mean, I can't speak highly enough about what it's done for us as a family. It helps. I mean, I know people that lose weight. They don't change anything about their diet and they lose weight when they start taking Biometric, just because their system is releasing the toxins and they're reducing inflammation. So I think you should get the 4-pack. So if you buy the 4-pack, it's $199 minus $50, so you're paying $150. And then on all your future orders, depending on how regularly and how often you order, you get 25% off, 15 to 25% off. So all your viewers that want to continue taking it, and it's a supplement that we're going to be on for the rest of our lives, because glyphosate is not going anywhere, right? And we keep eating food. So as long as we keep eating food that has glyphosate on it, and we go outside and it's in the environment, we're going to continue to have it. So I just want to get rid of it as much as I can.
Actually, you say glyphosate's not going anywhere. Actually, it's increasing in usage. It has been increasing in usage. So more, reason to take that. So so the way to get the $50 off is you can use the code AT50, A like Apple, T like Tom, the number 50 for $50 off. So when you go to checkout, that's what you put in. And then I also just typed into the chat, this is my website. I have more information. I mean, there's information on the Purium website about Biomedic, but I made a little area on my website which also has that gift code. And it's, if you go to autismtransform.com, it's under my store, and then you can see Biomedic. And the reason I put that in is because I didn't see anywhere on the website where they had the ingredients unless you looked at the label. What I have at the very bottom is what the ingredients are. So I'm going to say what they are. It's a spore-based probiotic, which is Bacillus coagulans. And that means it bypasses the stomach acid and actually gets into the intestines where it needs to be without being broken down in the stomach.
So Bernard, can I say one thing about the spore probiotic? Yeah. So from my understanding, this was specifically designed to, it kind of, a dandelion, when you blow on it, it has like all of these things that shoot out of it. So what this lacto spore does is it creates little explosions in your gut that helps shuttle the glyphosate out. So it's like you have like hundreds and hundreds of, when you take it, it's like hundreds of these little tiny explosions that you don't feel like, you don't feel them. It just happens. Just a way kind of to explain to your audience how it works, and it just shuttles all the icky stuff out. Okay, great, thanks. And it's got chicory root fiber, and my suspicion about that is it's a prebiotic, which helps to feed those microbes, the good microbes. Correct.
It's got something called humic sure and fulvic and humic acid blend, which is like really, really old deep earth. Prebio-sure digestive wheat germ extract. So someone asked if this was gluten-free. And here's the deal about wheat germ extract, because I use this in other supplements I like to recommend from Standard Process that has a lot of wheat germ. The wheat germ doesn't necessarily have gluten in it. And what they found in this product, well, you can say what the amount of gluten is versus what is defined for a celiac. You know that number, right?
Sure. So the wheat germ extract was put in there specifically. It's specifically there to regrow the villi. So those little fingers that we were talking about that are in your gut that are being killed by the glyphosate, it's in there to regrow the villi. So they have a proprietary process for this wheat germ extract that inactivates the gluten. So that's what their chief science officer has told me. So we're talking the amount of gluten that's in there is, it's not even a milligram. It's like microgram, which is like the tiniest amount of gluten. And just to give you an idea, you would have, and I want to read this. I want to read my notes because I want to make sure I get this right. You would have to take over 500 pills of Biomedic to reach the threshold in a study that was done on celiacs. That was done by the American Society for Clinical Nutrition. So,
meaning to
reach the threshold.
Yeah, to make a celiac sensitive.
That's correct.
You have to have 500 of those pills. Yeah, and I heard Dave Sandoval, who's one of the owners of the company, speak on this. He was interviewed in a Healing from GMO Summit, say that the amount to trigger, to be gluten, to be a danger to celiac disease people, this is this is somewhere up here, and this one's like way down here. So
right.
So it's not even the trigger.
Right. And so to give you an idea, you would have to take about 10 pills of Biomedic daily to have the same amount as one serving of a gluten-free pasta.
Okay, I
know
say that again. I like
Sure.
that way you put it.
Sure. So you would have to take 10 Biomedic pills daily for it to be the same amount of gluten that one serving of a gluten-free pasta has. Or there's another way that and I got this from Dave Sandoval actually. So one bite, just one tiny little bite of a gluten-free pasta has more than 3 servings of Biomedic.
Okay.
Right? So when you guys are eating, your gluten-free pastas or your gluten-free crackers, or your kids are eating gluten-free goldfish or whatever gluten-free, things they're eating, like one bite of gluten-free pasta has more than 3 servings of the Biomedic. So 3 servings would be six pills, and the most that he recommends anybody take is 4 pills. And again, you would work up to those 4 pills. So the protocol that we have our son on is a mega dose of 4 pills for 90 days. And then when he's done with the 90 days, which is very soon, we're going to titrate him back down to 2.
So when you're not even done with the first 90 days where you're mega dosing. So these are the results she's seeing in the first couple months.
That's correct. And I want to mention one more thing, if I may. The study that was done, the preclinical trial that I was talking about that showed the reduction in glyphosate and the reduction in inflammation, the group that was on the placebo actually was also using a different anti-glyphosate product that's on the market, right? So Dave Sandoval said, I want to prove to myself that this really works. So everybody continued to eat the standard American diet. They did not go gluten-free or casein-free or anything like that. They were eating what they were already eating. And so they had about probably like 60 to 70% of the people in the study were using a supplement to remove glyphosate. And then the other 30 to 40%, I don't remember the exact numbers, were using Biomedic. So he was actually competing, Biomedic was competing against another product on the market that is supposed to do the same thing. And yet you see the results are a decrease by 74% in glyphosate and 75% in inflammation compared to the group that was taking another supplement on the market that is supposed to do the same thing.
That's excellent. Good point. Since you've just mentioned the glyphosate testing again, I'm going to share my screen again very quickly. And because I have there it is. I just discovered this place, Health Research Institute Laboratories out of Fairfield, Iowa. There's their phone number up top. You can do a home, I just did this last week, a home collection kit, test kit to test for your glyphosate levels. And here you can see you can test your water as well, and you can test your animals. So what you do is you take your morning urine sample and then you just send it in. And there's a survey you take online that asks you some questions about your habits and how you eat and that kind of thing. Because what they're doing is you're not just going to get an answer on how much glyphosate is in your body, but you're also going to be part of their big test, because they're curious, like, hey, what's going on with the glyphosate levels in people? So you'll be part of their sort of research study in a way. And it's hrilabs.org, glyphosate testing. So did I just do that? Someone just circled this. I don't know what happened. But if you wanted to test your glyphosate levels before going on Biomedic and then after, that might be a really good thing too. I don't know. I want to say thank you, Tirza. We are toward the top of the hour, but there's a lot of questions. So I'm going to read through some of the questions that people have. Is that okay?
It's fine, but I would love to just mention one more quick thing, if you don't mind. I took my son to an integrative medicine doctor a couple of weeks ago. I saw her at a workshop, and she does a mind-body kind of thing, and she works with the ASD population. So we did a scan. It's called a quantum biofeedback scan, which basically she puts like these things, like it looked like a headband on his head and a couple of bracelets and anklets. And her machine just ran these tests for like 4 or 5 minutes to see what goes on in the body and the health and gut health and brain health and organ health and all of that stuff. And towards the end of our time together, I could see that she was trying to say, like she had something on her mind, but she didn't really know how to say it. And finally she goes, you know, Tirza, I have been working with the ASD population for over 20 years. I have been using a machine like this for about 10 years. And I have never, not one time, have seen the incredible results that I'm seeing today with your son. So she said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because you're doing it right. And of course I told her about the biomedic and she wants more, you know, she wanted more information, which she now has. But then I asked her, I said, well, what about the supplement protocol? And she said, you know, I put my patients on this protocol in hopes that they get to where your son is today. So I said, so that means that you don't recommend any supplements? She's like, that's right.
Yeah, well, you already have them on supplements and you've already done such an amazing job. So what you're saying is she sees her patients, her population start at a much different level and get up to where your son is.
That's right. And I think most of the patients that she sees are already dairy-free and already gluten-free, but she's still seeing for her to say that to me was just another huge validation that this works because, yes, the clinical trials, it's great to see those numbers. I didn't need those numbers because I see the changes that are happening at home, but to get her validation of this incredible machine, and she's used it, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of times because she does rescans. And for her to say, I've never seen a child have such a healthy gut and just keep doing what you're doing was really awesome.
That's great. I remember you telling me that. So I'm glad you remembered to mention that. I'm going to go to some questions. Do you have any advice about antibiotics? My 7-year-old gets ear infections and the doctor always prescribes antibiotics, but his behaviors always get worse. And then we have to work to recover them. I'm not a fan of antibiotics. Again, antibiotics means against life. I like prevention, so I like probiotics. Biomedic is like you know, probiotics on steroids, you guys. I mean, it's really, really amazing. So I like prebiotics. I like probiotics. Fermented foods are really, really good. And just you know, keeping a healthy gut because about 75 to 80% of all disease and all health issues start in the gut. Oh, for sure. Let's see. Someone says Persephone Senef wheat germ has the highest concentration of glyphosate. That's interesting. It would be interesting to know if the wheat germ that's in Biomedic is organic. Do you know that?
Yes. So there's no organic label on the bottle itself because it comes in a capsule, which, by the way, you can break open into a smoothie for your kids so they don't have to swallow capsules. But all the ingredients that are inside the capsule are organic.
Great. Thank you. I didn't know that. I'll have to add that to my website. Someone asks, will this help with my RA, which I assume she's talking about rheumatoid arthritis. And you said you have autoimmune. So what do you think?
Absolutely. I have Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid disease. And absolutely, this is fantastic for helping with any and all autoimmune disease because autoimmune is inflammation. And remember, this reduces inflammation by 75%. And this was in 6 weeks. And the people that were in this trial were taking a regular dose of 2 pills per day. And so the recommendation for most people is to do some megadose for 30 days. But for somebody that has an autoimmune disease or autism or something like that, I would definitely do a mega dosing of 4 pills for the first 90 days and then pull back.
Is that something that Dave Sandoval recommended to you, or is that just something that you decided? Okay.
No, he recommended that.
Okay. And next question I think I'll answer, is this product similar to Restore? So Restore is a product that helps seal the gut lining from glyphosate. It's got humic and fulvic acid and some amino acids. But Biomedic, besides having fulvic and humic acids, also has the wheat germ, which regrows the microvilli, and it has the spore-based probiotics. So they're different. How different is this to Bravo, GC MAF, yogurt, suppositories, etc.? So Bravo is, I'll answer this because I know what that is. Bravo is a type of yogurt or non-dairy probiotic that has 17 different microbes that are, enhanced to help heal the gut and help the microbiome flourish. And the GC-MAF is GC macrophage activating factor. It has something to do with kind of turning back on the immune cells in a certain way that gets rid of microbes. Well, Biomedic has one spore-based probiotic. GC-MAF has 17 different ones. I don't know what they are. I would imagine, Biomedic has more. So like Restore, which has humic and fulvic acid, the Bravo GC-MAF has only microbes that I understand. And so Biomedic it's a little bit more complete. It has more of that. I imagine you could combine Bravo and you can combine Restore and you combine some other things. And I don't know if you'd still get the same result as you would with Biomedic. Okay. So is this certified gluten-free? No, we talked about that, right? It has a teeny tiny bit.
Right.
Which is less than what's in your
Again,
gluten-free pasta.
Right. Just to be really clear, it has, so one bite of gluten-free pasta is more than 3 servings of Biomedic. So I don't know how much pasta you guys eat, but when you're eating pasta or any other like gluten-free pizza or any other gluten-free item, or your kids are eating gluten-free item, but I bet it's more than 1 bite.
Yeah. If you take this, should you still take a probiotic?
Well, this is what I've learned about probiotics recently. I was listening to Dr. Zach Bush, and he said that with a probiotic, you typically have, maybe 3 to 5 to 7 different strains of probiotics in them. So even if it's a really very concentrated, like 90 billion FUs or IFUs, whatever it's called.
CFUs.
CFUs, that's it. Mm-hmm. Even if it has like 90 billion CFUs, it's those same, let's say 5 strains. It's those same 5 strains that are multiplied over and over and over and over and over to get to that 90 billion. So we have so many different strains of bacteria in our gut. And I think probiotics are still good and they still serve a purpose. I've stopped taking them daily. My son doesn't take them daily anymore because I just figure it's not, it's taking care of, a tiny percent of all the bacteria that's in there. So.
Yeah, it doesn't address the variety issue, and I think I like your solution of having the sauerkraut and
right.
Or something fermented, because it's going to have a bigger variety to add to the to add to the Biomedic. I don't think one spore-based probiotic is going to be the answer, but I've heard people talk about, and I do this when I remember. You take a spoonful of kimchi or fermented vegetables or sauerkraut before a meal,
right?
And then that's your microbes that you're adding, right. And whatever vegetables you have is going to be their food,
right? And I also would like to mention that it's beneficial to rotate your fermented food. So don't eat sauerkraut every day, but maybe do sauerkraut one day. Do a kimchi the next day, do a fermented carrot or beets or something like that the next day, and then just rotate them, because they're going to have different strains of good bacteria that helps with your gut health.
Yeah. So someone asks, how young of a child can consume Biomedic?
If I had a baby right now, I would put it in their milk. Even if it was breast milk, I would just put it into a bottle and mix Biomedic in there. I would.
Yeah, I'm gonna do an anecdotal story at this point from a doctor that I heard, and this I heard him in a webinar. It wasn't his patient. I'm not gonna say who it was, but it was his patient. It was her sister who had just had a baby in the hospital, and he had a vaccine right away, and he was really feverish. He had a really bad reaction, and called him, and she said, "What do I do?" He's a perinatal specialist. And he said, well, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work, but what I would do is give high dose probiotics and this ketone ocean water. It's like all the minerals of what's in our blood. So for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's spelled Quinton, ketone, and it's basically remineralizes. And I think within a couple hours after doing that, the baby restabilized and fever went away and all that stuff. So I feel like if you have a newborn even that had a C-section or that just doesn't have the flora, I don't think adding probiotics is a bad thing. But that's my own opinion. I'm not giving medical advice, and I'm just sharing an anecdotal story, but I don't think it's a bad thing.
I agree with you, Liminar. And as a matter of fact, a lot of, as most of you guys probably know, because glyphosate is so prevalent in our environment, as you know, women and pregnant moms, we have glyphosate in our system, which we then deliver to the baby, right? So our babies in utero have been shown to, when they're born, to have like 300 different toxins or something crazy like that in their system before they even come out into the world. I mean, they're bombarded by it because of the stuff that we're doing unbeknownst to us, you know, the cleaning supplies and the shampoos and conditioners and the food that has glyphosate in it. So it's all the ingredients in there are safe. They're all natural. They're organic. I personally, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. But I've been to their facilities. I've seen where it's made. These guys really, really know their stuff, and they care about people, and they want to change. They want to end human suffering and you know, give children a better opportunity in life and people. And everything is on the up. I mean, everything is just amazing. I mean, this product is amazing. I would give it to my baby if I had a baby today. I think it would be important to give it to children that are born today to just help fight all the, you know, all the assaults that are coming to them.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that that study that you said where kids are born with almost 300 toxins in their body, I think it was 274, 276. That was a study done in 2004. So we're 14 years beyond that. Imagine what else is in our bodies today, because each year we come up with all these new, scientists come up with all these new chemicals that are going to help us in our daily life. So we're born with the stuff. Let's see, can you use Biomedic and Restore together? I don't know why not. I do. I use both. But I'm not very ill. I mean, I was a few weeks ago, and I still haven't recovered my energy, but to the level it was. But I've been using both of those pretty regularly for about a month and a half, maybe. Except when I was sick, I just kind of didn't do a whole lot. But because I'm not really ill, like I don't have a lot of inflammation normally, I don't notice the difference particularly. For me, it's a long-term experiment, and I'm watching. Let's see. Do you use a culture for your fermented vegetables? Please spell the name of the mineral again. The mineral. Oh, the mineral was the Quinton ocean water. It's Quinton. It's sold by, it's sold at Quicksilver Scientific. And the person who spoke about this in my last summit was Robert Slovak. He's a water expert. And the idea of the ocean water is that we all evolved from the ocean. So our blood actually evolved from ocean water. So the same mineral balances that the ocean has is what our blood has. And this ketone ocean water is what helps replenish the minerals that we might be lacking. That's the idea behind that. And then the other part of the question was, do you use a culture for your fermented veggies?
I don't. I just use the vegetables. I make sure that all my utensils are super clean. The surface I'm working on is super clean. Hands are clean. And then I use organic. I know there's the clean, you know, the clean 15 and the 12, the dirty dozen, and cabbage is on the clean 15, but I still use organic cabbage. I like to put other things in it like dill and onions, just to, you know, to kind of give it a nice added flavor. So just good pink Himalayan salt and the vegetables. And if I have to add a little bit of water, I just add some of our really, really good quality water to it.
And there are lots and lots of people online who do fermented veggies and can give you recipes and stuff like that. I've used the Body Ecology Starter Kit before, which is nice. They give you a prebiotic and then the probiotic mix. Someone asks, what do you do for sensitive kids who are unable to ingest a teaspoon of the juice from kraut and reactive fruit and vegetables and unable to consume even Dr. Ruggiero's The Bravo probiotic?
That's a good one. I would just start off small, or maybe try to hide it in something that they like to eat.
I think it's more about a reaction to it than a taste. like like if you give them a teaspoon, then it just like starts so many things happening in the gut that it's almost too much for the body to handle.
Then I would say stay away from, if that's going to happen, then stay away from it.
Well, it could also be that microbes produce a high level of histamine, so the child might be histamine sensitive, and so you should check out things along those lines too. Okay, we already answered that one. The replay, we will have a replay of this webinar. It'll be recorded and on the website tomorrow. How easy or hard was it for you to give Biomedic to your son? Wondering if he ever tried with capsule poured into water.
I haven't tried that just because I give him some other supplements. It's just easier for me to put it into a smoothie for him. So I use almond milk, some frozen organic blueberries, and all of the supplements, and I just put it in a little like bullet, and he drinks it, no problem. I used to put it in a coconut milk yogurt, and he prefers the smoothie to it. So he's 7. I still like to give him options. Mm-hmm. Would you rather have yogurt supplements or have smoothie supplements? And he likes the smoothie. It's easy. I just break all the capsules into it, and it's not a big deal.
So he doesn't swallow capsules?
He does not swallow. I've never tried to have him swallow it just because he used to have that gag reflex with certain foods. I don't want to take any chances. This Biomedic to me is like, it's like gold. I don't want to waste it.
Yeah, really. Great. Well, thank you. Someone did ask if I could explain more about my work, and this just isn't the time or place to do it. We're out of time, and if you want to know more about my work, my website is autismtransformed.com, and you can go and look under NMT, which stands for Neuromodulation Technique, and there's a bunch of videos that explain what it is and everything. And if you still have more questions, I have a contact sheet. You can ask me, you can write to me. So, maybe another time. Okay, someone's putting up their hand. This is whoever's on a Galaxy phone. Go ahead and you can hit *6 to unmute yourself and ask a question if you want, or maybe that was a mistake raising your hand. I don't know. I don't know your name because it just says Galaxy S6 Edge. So if you have that question, and you can unmute yourself by pressing *6, then go ahead and ask. Or maybe that was a mistake. A mistake for hand raising. Okay. Well, then I think we're going to end here. I am so grateful, Tirza, that you came on and explained what helped your son see differences and what those differences were, because I think that's really awesome for parents to hear. I know not every product is a magic bullet for everyone, but it sounds definitely like it's totally worth checking out. There was one more thing in the email before we go. You said what we all want to hear as parents is what people would get in the webinar. What was that?
So just everything that I've been hearing from his therapist and from friends and from family and from the doctor, that everybody wants to know what we're doing, because we've seen huge improvements in such a short amount of time. They just want to know what we've been doing. They're everybody's telling me his attention is better. His teacher yesterday sent a note home saying his focus and attention this morning was phenomenal, and she went out of her way to let us know that. So everybody's noticing. People that haven't seen him in a couple of months and are seeing him now are noticing the changes, and it's very exciting to see. And I also wanted to mention that the Biomedic and anything that you buy through Luminara's website has a 60-day money-back guarantee. So if you buy it and you don't like it, you can return it.
Yeah, actually, it's the Purium website, but it's that coupon code AT50 is somehow linked into me.
Right.
So every parent wants to hear these good reports from the teachers and the therapists saying, "What are you doing?" And so that's awesome. So once again, thank you so much for your time and sharing your very personal experience.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having me on the call with you today. Thanks, everyone, for watching.
Yes, I wanted to say that too. Thanks, everyone, for hanging in there to the end. Hopefully getting some good resources, not just the Biomedic, but the information about Restore and Bravo and about glyphosate testing and all the other little nuggets in there about cleaning up your environment. And Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.